2026 is a universal 1 year in numerology, and this is the year that is set to change everything. How we do everything that we do from here on in is about to shift, and we're going to look back 9 or 10 years from now, and we're going to say that 2026 was the year that changed everything. If you are new to my channel, welcome. My name is Raphael. I am an astrologer, tarot reader, numerologist, obviously, and an energy worker. For those of you that don't know, if you are a continued subby, you know Rafi loves you. So if this resonates with you in some way, shape, or form, don't forget to hit the button, the subscribe button. And I just want to say, for all of the support throughout 2025, I truly appreciate it. So this is the one, right? This is the big one. If you've been with me long enough, you know I have been talking about 2026 for a long time in terms of the numerology, because this is the start of a brand new cycle. So let's get into it. This is my annual universal year video. I've been doing this now since, oh gosh, I think 2020 at this point. So we're like 5 years in, right? And so literally, as we step into a new era, a new decade that is unfolding, I am halfway through the cycle of doing these videos, which is really, really exciting because we're going to start to see how this sort of really unfolds. So I am going to get straight into it. Obviously, whenever we're talking about a one energy, we are talking about the energy of innovation. We're talking about the energy of change. This is going to be a year that is all about new inventions that will absolutely be a feature of this year, especially with Uranus coming into the sign of Gemini. We've got new ventures, exciting and progressive exploration, experimentation, and also bold new colors and textures are all going to shape the tone of 2026 beautifully and in some excellent and weird and wonderful ways. Now, this is a year of powerful forward momentum, and that is really the hallmark energy of a universal 1 year. It's a year where people are going to crave more freedom, more independence, and also more self-direction. Beginnings and fresh starts are absolutely made here. Seeds are sown for the future. Seeds that are sown now will bear fruit in some time, because whatever begins in a 1 year also goes on to end up defining the next 9 or 10 years of our lives, the next decade, shaping it in some way, shape, or form. Whatever seeds you're sowing this year, they are going to permeate and unfold over the next 9 or 10 years of our lives. It's also a year for change, for upheaval, dissension as well, unfortunately, but this is where we, the people, begin to separate from the outdated systems of leadership that we have, simply had enough of, quite frankly. Pluto in Aquarius is definitely taking care of this as well. Exploration and experimentation of all kinds are going to come the norm, even trendy as well, right? People and nations are going to grow more daring, more courageous, more powerful, and more bold. And as long as their identity and alignment are clear, I think they absolutely move forward in some way. We're going to see a lot of new world records set, new goals forged, countless moments of personal achievement. Still, this is a foundational year. Both the 1 year and the 4 year hold the greatest weight in any cycle. And I've got a lot of reasons for saying that, which I might touch on later. Now, the essence of the number one, before we unpack 2026, what this might really unfold for humanity is, let's define what the number one energy really represents, right? So the first number, the one, the singularity, the spark of consciousness. It really is, and if in numerological and spiritual circles, it's known truly as the number of God. A lot of people postulate that it's the number seven. Number seven is the most spiritual number for sure, but it's not the number of God. The number of God is the number one. And the reason for that is because it represents the singularity, the one consciousness, because everything follows that number. Though I will give a humble and deep bow and nod to Sophia, the place from which the one originates and was born. That's a topic for a whole other conversation and another video. It would probably be about 4 videos that I really need to unpack that idea. And actually, there's someone that I think might really be able to do it justice. So I'm hoping I can get her on the channel at some point in the future. But in the here and now, the one is the number of the all that is, the one source, the one substance, the singularity, the collective we spoken of in the holy texts of ages past. That's the number one, right? This is the spark of consciousness becoming aware of itself and then forging forward, the lightning flash of thought, the electric current of life surging ahead in some way, shape, or form. It reaches out into the world of substance and experience to define itself both against and a part of everything else, right? So this is when we're talking about one, we're talking about the underlying everything of all that is. So when you hear those spiritual texts talk about the underlying one energy that permeates all things animate and inanimate, we're talking about that one energy. So what we're talking about effectively is the force of creation. The one is raw, unbridled, potent energy that surges forward in a very phallic, very projectile, masculine kind of way. It's positive and original and pioneering and revolutionary, curious, freedom loving, honest, fiery, passionate. Did I say passionate? Dynamic and forward thinking. The number one embodies certainty and clarity. It absolutely does. And people with a strong one energy in their numerology, they do whatever they want to do, but they do it with their entire being. No half measures, no hesitation. It's all or nothing, which can be great, but it can also be, challenging as well. That intensity is both their greatest gift and also sometimes their greatest challenge. The one energy is the I am principle. The one energy represents the great I am of the universe. Self-consciousness, self-conscious is in the right kind of way, the confident in its own divine origin kind of way. It really, in a lot of ways, one energy must be moving forward, and it must move forward with grit and gut, knowing that even when there's opposition or difference, the path has to be walked. This is an energy of independent, individualistic energy. It can be aggressive and forthright, honest, stubborn, forceful even, the boss, the leader, the pioneer, the creator and the creatrix. All of that is one energy. The all-inclusive one. One is the number that can go into every other number and the only one by which all numbers can be measured. Again, the singularity, right? There's no other number, like all other numbers can go into itself, but every single number can, one can go into every single one of them. It's the only number that can do that. This is effectively the pulse of 2026, a year to start, to surge forward, to build, and to become. The singularity entering the true universal 1 year. It's here now. Now that we understand the one energy a bit more, let's start to think about how we can explore 2026. That is a universal 1 year. So the numerology behind 2026, there's two ways that you can calculate this, and both are accurate as far as I'm concerned. You can do 2 plus 0 plus 2 plus 6 equals 10. Shave off the 0, we get 1, because you always simplify to you simplify basically in numerology. Then you've got 2026 where you can add the 20 to the plus the 2 plus the 6, right? So that gives you 28, which again would come down to 10, which again would come down to 1. Whichever way you calculate it, we arrive at the number 10. Now, 10 is a very special case because according to Pythagoras, the literal father of numerology, he believed that 10 represented what they call the tetractys. Oh my gosh. Right? A symbol of wholeness and perfect completion. He also described 28 as the second perfect number. This is very, very interesting to me, and it does suggest that 2026 is going to be a profound year of change. Not just because the numerology says so, or even because the father of numerology said so, but because the symbolism and the representation are so vast and so interwoven and so potent. And the astrology is backing this up. So, what we're going to see here is effectively what I think is going to be a shift into fullness. Many of the transits that we're going to see in 2026 actually began to take shape in 2025. So we've had a taste, right? We had a little teaser, a little amuse-bouche, as I like to say. But this year we're going to experience the full expression of what they're bringing into our world. And this is effectively where the energy becomes real, where it becomes tangible and embodied. What was only really hinted at before now is truly going to take shape or take form in some regard. So let's explore the cosmic blueprint, or rather the celestial blueprint, if you like. At the start of a universal 1 year, the nodes of the moon are going to sit at 10 degrees of their respective signs, Virgo and Pisces. Meanwhile, Venus is going to sit at 10 degrees of Capricorn. The sun is going to be at 11 degrees of Capricorn, and Mars is going to be at 13 degrees of Capricorn. So we've got a lot of Capricornian energy. Now, let me take you back to just a moment ago when I talked about the tetractys from Pythagoras, believing that 10 was a number of completion, wholeness, and attainment. In tarot, the number 10 literally represents completion, attainment of, a tangible sort of nature. When you're talking about the 10 energy in terms of astrology, you're actually talking about the sign of Capricorn. Well, what happens with the numerology? We slice the we slice the zero off and we get the number one. Well, what is the first sign of the zodiac? It's Aries, right? So it's just really interesting how all of this in some way, shape, or form interconnects. I find that really, really interesting. And I think that the alignment of all of this really speaks volumes, especially when you consider that Capricorn is the energy of refinement or perfection over time, right? That slow, steady movement, the delayed gratification, the knowledge that eventually, right, that whatever you start, as long as you complete it, you get the rewards from. That message is literally woven into one energy as well. The alignment of this really speaks volumes, and it does tell me that those who understand delayed gratification, hard work, determination, focus and dedication, as well as discipline, those who are willing to release rigid ideas of what service should look like and instead actually embrace what truly is service, are absolutely going to rise as the magnetic victors of the whole year and potentially the decade ahead. Those who really turn away from purely material and move towards inward spiritual dimension, as well as fulfilling the material promise, those are going to be the ones that really come up this year. You're going to see this and you'll be able to see it because the people that are moving forward, the people that are elevating in some way, shape, or form, they'll have another principle to them. It's not going to be greed. It's not going to be force. It's not going to be, all of that. You'll see a lot of determination. You'll see a lot of power in them, but you'll also see something deeply spiritual and something deeply, based on service. Now, one energy is the power of the sun, which is really interesting to me. What fascinates me even more is that at the time, the ultimate one principle, so in numerology, the sun is actually akin to the number one. In that numerological planetary sort of model, it begins at 11 degrees of Capricorn. So in the 10th sign, 1 and 1 does obviously reduce to the number 2, but it's a master number and it's a double up of the 1 vibration. Do you see? It's kind of like, I just find it really, really interesting. Especially as well, because if you've been with me long enough, you will have heard me say about the master numbers. They are here to be of service to humanity, not to be its servant. Don't conflate the two. So you combine this with the 10 of the Capricorn energy and it resonates to the number 3 as a Jupiterian number. And where was Jupiter at the moment? The great benefic of the zodiac at 21 degrees of Cancer. Now, do you see what I mean? Like, I'm not looking necessarily directly at the astrology itself. I'm considering the numerological vibrations and the energetic suggestions that we're being given about where things are at any given moment. And I just find it really, really fascinating how it all seems to interact and interconnect in some way. So, this year will absolutely have its ups and downs, and we're going to explore the reasons as we move forward. But change, upheaval, renewal, change always brings upheaval, right? If there were ever a word for 2026, change is absolutely going to be that word. Last year was about endings. This year is about beginnings, but there's more. When I bring all of this together, there is a deeper message that kind of really starts to emerge, and one that becomes almost like a central theme for the year ahead. And that is that this year isn't just about change, it's about stepping up to the challenge of self mastery as a fully embracing as a full embracing actually of the power of new creation without hesitation or apology. It's a year where the inner spark of creation and leadership is absolutely going to demand action, where you define yourself through your choices and how you move forward no matter what the obstacles are. The theme of 2026 is really about becoming the force. The true power of creation lies within, and the true test of really trusting is kind of really you trusting the process, not rushing to see results, but knowing that your connection to the source of all is will manifest your intentions when the time is right. And that's a really fancy way of saying patience is a virtue. Now, one is not necessarily known for its patience, but the message here kind of runs deeper than that. One thing that one energy really does understand, although it wants to forge ahead and surge ahead, it also knows if I plant this today, there will be a tomorrow where I get to reap the rewards. In 2026, the challenge really is to anchor yourself in spirit and become one with your own divine power, whatever you believe that to be, with full force and confidence that what you are cultivating now will absolutely take root. It's not about forcing change, it's about allowing it to unfold and trusting that it's already in motion. And I'm going to give you an example. When you plant a seed, you don't then dig it up to see if it's growing. When mummy and daddy come together to create a baby, you don't shove a torch in there to shine it about it. Well, I mean, maybe you do in some situations, but you don't shove a torch in there, do you, to see, like, what's going on. You trust the power of, nature to run its course. You do your bit, and then you trust the process to unfold as it needs to. The demands really are a shift, right? It is going to demand a shift from external validation to internal mastery, a deep, unwavering faith in the unseen forces that are guiding your process. Take active responsibility this year, taking active responsibility for your own creation, not passively sort of just doing nothing, but recognizing that immense power lies in making the decision, forging ahead, and owning your path. It's not just about forcing the change, but as I say, or even trusting it blindly, it's about becoming the force that drives it. Knowing the power that you yield comes directly from your connection to source energy. So you initiate, you do your part, and then you trust the rest to unfold or to take sort of place. Now, in terms of active creation, we're talking about becoming the force. You're not just a passive recipient of the universe's plan. This is kind of like, when people say, massive action is required. You are the creator of your own reality, the force that steers your destiny. It's not that life happens to you, it's that life happens through you. You are an active participant in this. This is about claiming your active role in the unfolding of your life, knowing that every step that you take, every seed that you plant is aligned with your inner power, your personal inner authority. And that's going to be a massive buzzword for this year. What you create will manifest the moment that you fully embrace the power that you have within. So the responsibility of creation, well, there is, this is the idea of active creation, embracing the responsibility that comes with your own potential. It's not about waiting for things to happen to you. It's about stepping into your power, taking action with full ownership of your future. And even when the results aren't immediately visible, you stick to your plan, you stick to your process, you do the part that you need to do, and then you learn to surrender the rest. That is how you truly co-create with the universe. The trust required here is not passive. It's a trust in your own ability to create your conditions for success, knowing that the universe is going to support you as you move forward. And that moving forward is an absolute part of the process. It's really one of the divining, one of the define, maybe it's just a Freudian slip there. It's really one of the defining parts of the process. You, this year, all of us in some way, shape, or form, are being tasked with and challenged to become the emissary of the divine. When you accept your role as the emissary of the universe, the living expression of divine source itself, you begin to understand that whatever happens externally is ultimately for your highest good. That's not me excusing the atrocities in the world, right? Check what I'm saying before you start trying to pick it apart in that way. Everything leads you towards the greatest desires of your heart, even when the route isn't clear. If you've been with me long enough, you'll say that I always call this the divine detour, the divine delay, right? And also sometimes experience is what you get when you don't get what you want. And that experience helps you define what the path actually looks like between where you are now and where it is that you would like to be. Your faith in action. It's not about sitting back and watching life fall apart and saying, well, the universe has got my back. That's reckless, it's wasteful, and quite frankly, it's a little bit lazy, right? Instead, this is about knowing that what you choose, walking your path and planting seeds in faith is absolutely a part of it. And instead of digging those seeds up and checking to see if they're growing, you trust the process to unfold. There is no separation between your effort and divine creation. They are one and the same, right? You do the action, you make the thing happen, you choose your path, you walk the path, and then the universe literally rearranges everything to ensure that you get what it is that you desire. So now I want to explore some of some of the astrology, right? Let's have a look at a few of the things that are unfolding. So Venus in Capricorn at this moment in time is the reward of devotion, where you kind of really learn to love the labor of it all. And this is a vital part of the entire process, really. Venus is the principle of love and beauty, harmony, value, worth, connection, and diplomacy, and it begins the year in the sign of Capricorn, often called one of the most barren signs, right? But here's the truth. Capricorn builds to last. It works for the long term. It understands that what we build now might not pay off immediately, but it will endure and it will eventually bring the goods or the things that we desire in some regard. Yes, Capricorn can be serious and it can even be dry, but it also offers constancy and wisdom and also results, especially in the long run. When combined with the Venusian elephant, the Venusian element or influence, this can bring a deep financial stability and even enduring rewards in time if we're willing to face the reality and do the work. Now, you add to that that Mars is going to be here too, in the sign of his exaltation, providing passion and power and drive, doing it in a way that is dutiful and focused and also dedicated and disciplined. And it will be providing us all with the deepest sense of personal respect and also dedication to our craft or even the task at hand. Now, given that Mars is the planet of personal willpower, it's going to be conjoining the ultimate I am principle, right? The sun, and it's also conjunct Venus at this time. So there's a sense here really that in some way, shape or form, This year we are being refined in a powerful and dynamic kind of way. That's, effectively that's a really potent mix, and it's also a rod of steel that runs down your back to meet and achieve, Mars, the goal that we really, truly, deeply, at a soul level, the sun, really desire, Venus, right? So you can see how those three sort of elements are kind of coming together. It's a really powerful time. Now, in learning to love the labor, this year is really about falling in love with the process, not the results, not the tangibles, not the moment where you get to celebrate. Yes, there will be some of those, but this is really learning to love the labor. And speaking of learning to love the labor, I think from here on in, certainly over the next decade, we're going to see a lot of people returning to jobs that require their hands, that are laborious in some way, shape, or form. Yes, even with the advent of AI and all the other stuff, I said what I said and I'm sticking to it. We'll see how it all unfolds, right? So, and I've said this before in other videos where I believe that the new world that we're building, that is super technologically advanced and all the rest of it, well, who's going to build the stuff that's going to build the stuff? Right, we have to start somewhere. Who's going to be the technicians and the engineers and the software engineers and the people that are constructing and building this stuff? That has to happen somewhere until we're in a place where the things can build themselves. Yes, that world is coming, but it's not fully here yet. So, learning to love the process, learning to be in love with the journey and what and who you become on that journey is really going to be a big part of this year. To love the hard work, the toil, the daily effort that keeps you aligned with the divine, and also the creative current that runs through you. And speaking of the creative current, I think that's going to be such an important energy for this year. You know, I talked about this. The one energy is the creator and the creatrix. When you walk and you work in the creator's image, trusting that all of your steps are following a divine rhythm of some sort, you start to really understand that the same power that guides your footsteps is the power that fuels the entire universe, right? And so, in some way, shape, or form, this year, this idea of a singularity where we're all connected and interconnected is going to really take root. And I'm going to talk about how much I really feel that when we get into the part when I talk about Saturn and Neptune, but that's for later down the line. Now, in terms of the number one and the tarot, well, what is the number one in the tarot? It is this. This guy is the number one, right? That's the one card in tarot. Now, in tarot, especially the card that is numbered one, is the magician, known as by Arthur Edward Waite, the creator of the tarot, as the primum mobile, the primary initiating force. Shout out to Pamela Coleman Smith, Pixie, who created all of the images. Waite gave her some very loose ideas, but she really brought the deck to life as the artist, right? So we have to give her her props. We've got to give her her flowers wherever she is. I hope she's resting in peace as a true creatrix. Right? You want an idea of a creatrix, the woman that created all of the images on the tarot deck? Yeah, she was a creatrix for sure. It represents masculine projectile energy, consciousness aware of itself, gathering power and launching forward in a burst of creative intent that seeks exploration. It seeks gnosis, wisdom of both self and other, reaching into the cosmic void of, for truth and for mastery in some way, shape, or form. Now, when you think about the tarot, this card, it does literally speak of as above, so below. We're going to talk about that principle a little later on as well. Now, we are talking here in a lot of ways the age of information versus the era of expertise, right? We're already drowning in information. There's so much of it available, yet true knowledge and true wisdom seem to be at an all-time low at this moment in time. That's going to change over the next decade. I genuinely believe that, and I'm sticking to that fact. A lot of people will fight me on this. That's cool. Everybody's allowed their opinion. I'm sure I'm not the only person that's doing research on things. But I think that a lot of the modern gurus are going to tell us, like, they're going to insist that you have to be a great generalist. You've got to wear 1,000 different hats and be able to do a bit of everything. That's only half the story. Yes, having a wide base of knowledge absolutely matters, but this is not the energy of a generalist. This decade belongs to the experts. You trust me for that. Those who can adapt fast and specialize deeply are the ones who master their craft, the ones who stop dabbling and start embodying. Trust me for this. Over the next 10 years, depth will outperform breadth every single time. And I mean this, right? Trust me for this. 10 years from now, when we're all looking back, we're going to come back to this video. I'm either going to be saying a mea culpa, I got it wrong, or we're all going to be looking at it and going, yeah, Ralph kind of knew some shit. All right, so the mercurial element, the mercurial influence. The tarot card of the magician is Mercury, so it has a mercurial influence to it, embodying speed, intellect, communication, conversation, and also command of language. That's going to be an important one as well. Interaction or and technology, right? This is the card of marketing, storytelling, using words as spells, shaping reality through sound and also through symbol. The one energy is a masculine projectile force. As I always say, this radiates power and magnitude. It's not an energy of waiting. It's about using the conscious mind and the power of the tongue to create as you speak. Because this card also rules power, it highlights a key theme of 2026, and that is who has it, how do they use it? And what does that mean for the collective? These are going to be big questions on the tongues of everybody as of next year, or should I say, as of 2026. Now, in terms of magic, power, and awakening, well, the magician is literally a card of magic. And in 2026, those who are sort of truly attuned in some way, shape, or form, um, they're going to have, what's the best way to put it? I think people are going to be seeking new ways to tap into their power, their own energy, to reconnect with spirit, and also to reclaim their ability to shape their own reality, to shape their own destinies in some way, shape, or form. The magician being a card of magic, this is going to be about how people feel their powers are coming online in some way. Some will begin for the very first time, some will be starting over, some will literally, be feel like they're being plugged into the mains or the source of life. Now, the as above, so below principle that the magician is doing, he's doing this thing that he's got going on. This relates to the Hermetic axiom, as above, so below. And in alignment with the astrology, 2026 really speaks to a time where humanity takes another step forward in spiritual advancement. And again, I'm going to talk about that when we get into the part where I talk about Neptune and Saturn, right? Because I think it's a really important point. Now we begin to see astrology and esoteric knowledge as not so much as a pseudoscience, right, but as an integral language for understanding human experience. Now, what's really interesting is just the other day I saw an article by Neil deGrasse Tyson, and he was saying that, not an article, I think it was a podcast, and he was saying that astrology is making us dumber. And I was like, this guy is so full of fucking bollocks. It's unbelievable. Like, sometimes I just don't think he thinks before he says things. Like, don't get me wrong, the dude is super smart. He's smarter than I will ever be. But at the same time, just because you're really intelligent doesn't necessarily mean you know everything. And I would say, like, considering astrology has survived, what, the last 2,000+ years, I would say that it's kind of accurate. And the fact that there's a saying in the astrological community that literally says millionaires don't use astrologers, billionaires do. Why the fuck are billionaires out here using astrology if there's nothing to it and it's all just a pseudoscience? Come on now, mate. Come on. Yeah, let's get a little bit real in the room for a second, shall we? Now, this year really marks the beginning of a collective shift towards higher spiritual densities and more permeable and refined states of consciousness that are going to allow deeper spiritual exploration than ever before. What do I mean by this? Well, when you think about Neptune, Neptune is a fine vibrational energy. It's, we talk about it as gaseous, we talk about it as vapor, we talk about it as steam, as the ocean, as the waters. It doesn't necessarily have like a tangibility to it, right? And yet, Neptune is one of the principles of that high vibrational transcendent energy. It's trance work, it's mediumship, it's all of those kinds of things. In order to do those kinds of things, the spirit or the mind or the will has to become a lot more permeable. So the densities of our spiritual selves are going to start to shift. We're gonna see a lot more of this, especially around things like magic, science, and the impossible. And you're probably watching this and thinking, I keep veering off into the future. Because this number, this universal 1 year that we're having in 2026 is going to stretch into the future. And I believe, even though we've had, many historical universal 1 years in history, it's not the only one we've ever had. This one has things happening that have never happened in our recorded history. That tells me that we as humanity, we as a species, a we as a universal experiential being, as a collective, are experiencing things that are going to take our evolutionary leaps forward in massive, massive ways. Magic, science, and the impossible. This card, the tarot card of the magician. What is science except magic that we kind of understand? Over the next decade, we're going to witness things that seemed impossible once or science fiction, and then all of a sudden they're going to start to be very commonplace. And this really starts now. I think even in 2026, we're going to see some stuff that blows our minds. The magician's energy is the bridge between mysticism and innovation, between belief and creation. Now, let's talk about power, politics, and perception. Well, the magician, as the emblem of the year, also points to powerful people and also power players that are rising. The universal 1 year in history corresponds with shifts in power. So we're going to see a lot of hands changing. We're going to see new leaders emerging, old structures dissolving, as if we could see any more of that. Because the magician is mercurial, therefore the trickster, we must remain vigilant. This year is one where it's potentially going to be easy for illusions to take hold, so we have to be discerning. Magician being Mercury, what happens when Mercury goes retrograde? Communication gets a little bit messy, it gets a little bit weird and wonderful. Now, you add to that then that all of the Mercury retrogrades that take place in the year of 2026 are also going to be in water signs. Keep your spirit sharp and your awareness absolutely awake. Listen to your inner senses and your consciousness as much as, if not more so, than your ears and your eyes, right? Because those senses can be fooled. Your intuition and your deep feelings, they can't. Your feelings can be manipulated to a point. That's a part of being human, right? But as long as you allow them to flow and you're deeply in tune and attuned to yourself and your cosmos, your connection to the universe, your inner knowing, your true intuitive core remains incorruptible. All right. And we know that. I have so many clients ask me, Raf, how do I know? I get all this intuitive information, but how do I know it's my intuition and not my history or my programming or my whatever? I always say to them, your intuition will tell you to do something that is either hard or not very comfortable 9 times out of 10. Sometimes it tells you to take the easy route because that really is the best way to go. But more often than not, your intuition will say, no, you know the right path and you're not taking it because you don't want to, because there's a secondary benefit, because it's hard, because it's this, it's that, right? Your history, your programming, all of that kind of stuff will tell you to do what's easy, what keeps you comfortable. That's how you really know the difference between the two. So let's take a moment to explore the shadow of the one. Well, when divine will becomes dominion, every energy that creates can also destroy. And the one energy is no exception to this. Its light can birth new worlds, right? But its shadows can absolutely render them to ash. The same fire that ignites destiny can also scorch the earth if it's left unchecked. There's an old African proverb that I absolutely love, and that is, the child that is shunned by the village will happily watch it burn. Okay. Well, there's a reason that solitary confinement is given as a punishment, right? When people are cut off from others, when they're isolated. And I'll say this, while it is a 1 year and self time, alone time, doing things on your own, for yourself, by yourself, not constantly stimulated and connected to others, moments of quiet, moments of rest, moments of separation from the collective or the herd, those things are going to be so important this year. So important. It's a year to be self-directed, self-focused, and self-centered. Not self-centered, me, I, just me. Self-centered, right? There's a difference. If you've been with me long enough, you know I've been telling people that since 2016, the last 9 year that we had, or the year that must not be named, as I call it. Anywho, right? When the one energy forgets its connection to source, it becomes the false god, the ruler who confuses control with creation. This is the point where inspiration kind of turns into domination, right? Or something else. I'll give you a perfect example here. Where are you, mister? I'll give you a perfect example. You see the difference between these two magicians? You see how they're both giving the same, right? When this goes wrong, it turns into this, right? Look at them. Look at how they're both holding their hands, right? Very, very different energies. Now, that being said, this is where the I am becomes only I am. It's the energy at its lowest. When one energy is at its lowest vibration, it will become intolerant, unable to hear, and only to command or to tell others what to do. It will become obstinate, clinging to a path when all signs are kind of saying no, go the other way. It will become tyrannical, right? Mistaking, force and domination for leadership. Egotistical as well, believing that the spark, belongs to them rather than moves through them. This is the shadow side of sovereignty, the hunger to be seen as the one rather than, one of many or a part of many. And this is one of the reasons Aquarius energy, I'm biased because I am an Aquarius, but it's one of the reasons that I love Aquarius energy, because Aquarius energy says, which is where Pluto is, by the way, we're all individuals and therefore we all deserve space. We all deserve time. We all deserve to be who we are and still understand and connect as a collective. When we speak of the magician energy, we speak of command and will. But when it forgets the humility that it's supposed to have, it really turns into manipulation. It becomes about control of outcomes rather than the alignment of purpose. And that's where this year is really going to test the maturity of power in leaders, in nations, in creators, and also in you, right? It's going to reveal who has really learned to channel divine energy responsibly and who still tries to own or to wield it in some way. We're going to see this in so many different ways, because power without presence just becomes violence, right? Creation without consciousness becomes chaos. I think we've seen that definitely. So this is kind of like what I see as, like Prometheus gave man fire. Like, and then the gods kind of punished him for it. Well, the lesson is not that every spark is meant to be wielded alone, right? And that's kind of, for me anyway, that's the message of Prometheus. It's that, he saw this wonderful thing that could absolutely make humanity better, and he decided that he was going to share it with us, and he did so. And in doing so, he made the human race better than it ever was. In 2026, humanity learns the difference between being powerful and being power itself. Um, if you really want to see that in exploration, if you need it in a visual way, I would say watch the series A Discovery of Witches. Watch it all the way through because there's some real gems of wisdom in that series. If you really want to take it deep, read the books, right? The task here is not to dominate, but to direct, not to demand, but to decide with integrity. True leadership really begins the moment that you realize that the force flowing through you is not yours, it's on loan from the cosmos. The enlightened one does not impose his will, he becomes the will of creation himself, or itself, should I say. So hopefully that gives some idea of how I kind of see that aspect of this all. So now let's explore some of the Saturn Neptune conjunction, right? So this is another one of these sort of big deal transits that's unfolding here over the course of the year. Now, we've already had a taster of this. We had both Saturn and Neptune move into the sign of Aries in 2025. So we've seen this. We've had a little bit of a taster. We've also had the same taster of Neptune, Uranus moving into the sign of Gemini, which is also a pretty big deal. So Saturn and Neptune in their conjunction in Aries, this is effectively a cosmic reset that begins in some way, shape, or form. We had Neptune re-entering Aries on January the 26th. We've got Saturn moving back into Aries on the 14th of February, and the official conjunction between the two takes place on the February the 20th of 2026. Now, this is a big deal. Technically, yes, we've already had a taster of this transit, but when they came very close to a conjunction in 2025, but both of them were retrograde at this moment in time. And I really feel that that detail of this transits, effectively, because I always see this like when a planet crosses a boundary and then it retrogrades over it, back into the sign before and then comes back in. I always see that retrograde as kind of like an inoculation of, against that energy to kind of say you're getting more of this, so you kind of need to be prepared for it. It suggests to me that humanity has been rebooted in some way. Now, if you haven't seen my Universal 9-year video, it is just like this one, a very long watch, but I do urge you to watch it because it will give you really important context. I always say that when a planet dips in and dips out, though, it gives you that kind of, you get a taster, right? You really get to understand what it's doing. You get a heads up so that when it goes forward, you can kind of really experience it in a way that's more beneficial. It's kind of like a bit of a hair of the dog kind of, a small dose of the thing that helps us build up immunity to the harder effects of whatever it is that's coming in. Now, Aries, the sign of Aries, Aries represents the self, the first breath, the spark of life. And when Saturn and Neptune meet, they erode whatever they touch through dissolution and also through restructuring in some way. Think back to their last conjunction in Capricorn, right? So it's really interesting, right? We had the last Saturn Neptune conjunction came together in the sign of Capricorn, right? 10th sign of the zodiac, slice off the zero. This one's happening in the sign of Aries. You guessed it, the number one, right? And their last conjunction happened in 1989, which was a 9-year, I do believe. And then on top of that, we've got this one happening in Aries. So I believe this kind of, even though Aries is the sign of the self, my feeling about this is it kind of erodes or gets rid of this idea of just me, right? Hear me out for this. There's a reason that I kind of feel that this is the case. And one of the reasons for this is because Saturn is going to temper conflict and dampen aggression, while Neptune is going to soften humanity, awaking us to our deeper spiritual nature. So remember earlier I said to you, I feel that this is going to be a time where we do come where humanity really is in some way, shape, or form becoming a lot more spiritual. And I really think that this starts this year. This is a greater sense of how we are connected to the cosmos, to the divine, and to the whole by really understanding ourselves, our personal nature, our personal path and direction, and how those things are deeply integrated into the collective in some way, but how they also do set us apart. Together, they signal a transcendence, more people awakening, having more spiritual experiences, exploring other realms of and through and with and by their own consciousness. Since this conjunction touches the sign of the self, I believe that we're going to see a collective shift from I and mine to we and ours, right? That collective we that we hear spoken about in scriptures and holy books and all the rest of it. And I spoke about this a lot in the Universal 9 Year video, the coming consciousness shift. Well, here it is, right? It starts now. The 0 point of Aries is the breath of creation. Aries is the first sign of the zodiac, and both Saturn and Neptune are going to cross that first degree at the 0 point of Aries, and this time they're going to stay in that sign. So they've already activated this part, and that brings me to something else that's really, really interesting as well, and that is that the true first card in the zodiac, and I did give Sophia her shout out earlier because she deserves. The true first card in the major arcana of the entire tarot deck is actually the Fool. But look at it, it's a zero, right? Now, in astrology, the degrees are 30 in a sign, but they run from 0 to 29, not 1 to 30. This I find so, so interesting because to me, I call zero the 0 point, I call that the cosmic womb. So it's quite poetic that both of these two planets poised to make these massive waves are following that same principle, right? The return to the void, the blank slate in some way, the beginning of beginnings, if you like. Now, the truth about Saturn gets a really bad rap, and it's often called the hard taskmaster, but he's so much more than that. Saturn is persistence and endurance, it's determination, it's staying power, it's discipline, determination, and focus, and it is also a deeply spiritual planet. And shout out to Adam Ellenbass, who, as many of you know, was one of my astrology teachers. And I always say his course definitely made me a better tarot reader. It really did. But he was the first person that I ever really heard talk about Saturn as a spiritual planet, as a spiritual principle. And the stuff that he really taught us about this planet, about this energy, really blew me away. So check out his stuff because he's got some really incredible ideas on this. In the old world, Saturn was agriculture, the slow, steady, patient rhythm of growth. You can put a tomato seed in the ground, you cannot hurry it along until you see ripe red tomatoes growing on the vine. You can't have none of those tomatoes, right? So when you think about that slow, steady, sustained effort, it is consistent, but it's not ready for harvest until it's ready for harvest. That's another thing that this year is really trying to teach us, and Saturn moving into Aries is absolutely doing the same. Caitlin Koppock of Sphere and Sundry, shout out to Sphere and Sundry. I don't know if you guys know them. I absolutely love their stuff. There are very few people in my time, in my all of my 40 years, darling, in my 40 years, I have purchased a lot of magical and all kinds of weird and wonderful goods. There are only two people, especially in this online sphere that we've got going on now, there are only two places that I now shop from. And the reason for that is their stuff actually does what it says on the tin. The first one is Sphere and Sundry. Shout out to them. I absolutely love them. Lord and Lady Koppock, as I like to call them, Caitlin and Austin. The second is Aconite Conjure. She is mostly based on Instagram. And when I tell you These are the only two people that I come back to time and time again. I discovered Sphere and Sundry in 2019. I discovered Aconite Conjure in 2020, and I still shop from them today. All right, that's just to give you an example. When I say theirs is the stuff that works, that actually does what it says on the tin, they're the only two that do. Now, the reason I mentioned Caitlin Coppock here is because in one of her write-ups for her Saturn work, she talked about Saturn and said, all things that are worth doing something or worth having or whatever take time, and time takes all things. That is such a profound universal truth. It is unbelievable. In the film Queen of the Damned, don't know if you ever saw that. It was the last film that Aaliyah ever filmed. May she rest in peace. And Power, because loved her. She's one of the only celebrities I ever cried over hearing about her death. Anyway, the main character Lestat tells his wannabe lover, "You're beautiful to me because you're human. Your frailty, your short years, your life is always so urgent because you know that your days are numbered." That's Saturn, right? That is Saturn in a nutshell. The reminder that all things fade, that time is actually sacred, that urgency, that gives urgency to, and also gives meaning to our lives, right? To know that your time is finite, that you're not always going to be here. Saturn is also the reality check, the father of time, the lord of the grind, reminds us that anything that was worth having, anything that's worth, that is worth having is worth working and even fighting for. In Aries, he'll show us what's right to fight for and what's not, what's worth our time and energy and what's a waste of both. Now, Saturn and Neptune, Neptune being the transcendent, the high vibrational, the fine vibrational, the spiritual, the mystical, the intangible. When these two come together, we're talking about the two different aspects of the two polarities of the world and existence itself. Reality, Saturn, fantasy, Neptune, the mystical and the mundane, the tangible and the intangible, the hard and the soft, the moral and the obscure, the spiritual and the material. Neptune is the dream, Saturn is the reality, and coming together in this one, this is where Neo meets the architect. It's also when the Oracle says to Neo, "You're not here to make the choice. You've already made it. You're here to understand why." It's that realization that you can, when Neo has that realization that he can shape the matrix itself because it's not as solid as he once believed. That's Saturn and Neptune coming into Aries, and it's showing us that who we are, who we know ourselves to be, has to change now. What we knew before, what brought us to this moment, has brought us to this moment, but it will take us no further. So you're going to have to find new ways of doing everything. You've heard me banging on about this. You're going to hear me banging on about this in all of my content, in all of the year ahead stuff. 2026 is a universal 1 year. One is change, it's new beginnings. Every way that we've done things before in the past is just not going to cut it this year. You will have to do things differently. You'll have to use new tools, new ideas. You'll have to go in different directions. And really and truthfully, if you see this as an adventure and an exploration of becoming the next best version of who you have the potential to be, you will absolutely get the most out of this year and therefore the decade that lies ahead. Now, I want to take a moment to tell you about the 2026 compass. I think this is the perfect segue for it. I knew that this year I would have to do everything differently. I knew that everybody in some way, shape, or form would have to do things differently. October through December of any year always shows you what's coming up in the following year, right? So we get a heads up as to what the one energy is likely to be bringing in. So I knew that all of this stuff would be coming out at this time, and I was like, right, okay. And I remember hearing the universe, like, because I always, whenever I create something new, I always have this moment where I'll sit with the universe and I'll say, "What do you want from me this year? What am I supposed to be doing?" The first thing that I heard this year was you have to be of service to more people. And I was like, right, okay, how do I do that? Right, so it set me about thinking. One of the ways that you're going to see that I've done this year, which I really hope you guys love and enjoy. Is I'm taking one of my products and my services that is usually behind a paywall and I'm putting it directly out there for all of you to enjoy. And I also created the 2026 compass. 2026 is going to require some serious navigation, right? And so for that reason, I created the compass. What is it? You're going to get a 12-month tarot reading specifically for you, directly based on your energy. You're going to get a PDF booklet. You know, Rafi loves a PDF. You're going to get a PDF booklet calendar with written insights in it specifically from me based on your chart, based on your numerology for the year ahead. As if that wasn't enough, you're also then going to have a 3 hour session with me where we're going to sit down. We're going to plan your meticulously. We are going to sit, you're going to ask me any questions that you've got about your reading, about your astrology, about the plans that you have for the year ahead. Trust me, I have gone all in for this one. Now, as if all of that wasn't enough, you're going to get a complimentary, completely free seat on the winter solstice session in December. And the reason for that is because I want to energetically align you with your year as well, right? Now, there is a payment plan. You pay your first installment on sign up. You pay your second installment in November. By the time we get to December of 2025, you're already paid up. Then you have your 3 hour session. When you get to January, you go in. I'm going to put a compass in your hand so that you know how to navigate this year. You're going to sidestep your challenges. You're going to lean into your blessings and you're going to be aware of what's unfolding as and when, and you're going to get back on your path should you stray from it. Now, that being said, I only have 30 spaces for this because if you think how much time and effort and energy has gone into the year ahead project, imagine how much time, effort, and energy I'm going to be spending on those 30 people. For that reason, I can only fit this many, like literally time. When I was looking at it, I was like, right, okay, this is the amount of people that I can fit in for this, no more. That being said, there's a link in the description box below. Either all 30 spaces will go or doors will close on October 31st. All right, so if you want to get yours, if you want to work with me in that way, there's a link in the description box below. It would be my pleasure to serve you in that way. If you think, you know what, it sounds amazing, Raf, but it's a bit beyond me at the moment, or I'm not ready for that level right now, then I have the Navigator for you. This is quite frankly a gem in your arsenal for 2026. It's a 3-part energy work system. You get the whole thing to start with. As soon as you sign up, you're ready to go. There's PDF booklets to support you so that you can track your progress. You've got effectively what is a cookie clearer. This is going to help you clear the energy of the last 9-10 year cycle. You get a navigator video that's going to help you clear and, you know, literally sidestep any of the energetic or even mental or spiritual trip ups that are coming up for people in 2026. And then you get the instillment protocol, which is where you're going to set the codes and the energy for the next 9-10 years, not just for 2026, but from there onwards. I am so proud of this because it is something truly special. And, you know, even if I say so myself, and for those of you who really just want to hit the reset button and you're not really sure where to start, trust me, the Navigator will absolutely help you to do that. That's open for everybody. There's no limit on how many of you can jump in on that. There are links for all of this in the description box below. It would be my pleasure. And you don't even need to be anywhere at a certain time with the Navigator. It's there. It's open as soon as you sign up. Back to the universal 1 year. The awakening, right? What happens when the lights come on at the cinema? We step back into reality. What happens when we have a profound spiritual experience, when faith either carries us through or no longer feels like enough? Both are essential. Both of them are real. And that's what really the lesson of Saturn and Neptune in Aries, the merging of transcendence and truth. This is the power of the self. In the sign of the first breath, the one energy is strong. The self is strong. Remember that Aries energy or that Aries part of your chart, that's where you're meant to be a pioneer. That's where you're meant to do things in your own way and to go in your own direction. And yet that Saturn and Neptune conjunction coming together in that space is to say, well, you've done it this way so far. Now you're going to have to do it all in a completely different and a brand new way. This is the pioneering spark of existence. In your Aries sector, you are meant to lead. You are meant to stand alone if necessary, to fight, to fiercely and bravely do what you truly desire in the depths of who you are. Understand that this conjunction, it really is bringing the self focus into a more spiritually aligned version of self. It's going to evolve, right? It grows roots in collective purpose. And I think we're going to see this in a big way this year. What happens when we all suddenly share the same mission? When self improvement becomes the path to global healing? This, I believe, is the beginning of the great human glow up. We're going to see this unfold over our lifetimes, but not fully completed. We might, in a lot of ways, be planting, trees that we never get to see the shade from. But as Caitlin reminded us, all things take time and time takes all things. We're standing on the precipice of a monumental shift in both consciousness and spirit for the human race. I genuinely believe that. What ripples out from this within each of us and the collective is going to be extraordinary. All right, perhaps even a little bit terrifying, but undeniably transformative in some way. So the final leg of this video, I really want to explore not only some of the trends and the themes, but also we're going to delve into some of the historical 1 years that we've experienced as well. So this in many ways is going to be the start of the age of the awakened, right? And to those who have already walked the path, the mystics, the sensitives, the empaths, the spiritualists, we've kind of been waiting for you guys, right? It's nice to know that humanity's catching up, but we've been here a long time, right? We've been waiting for you guys. No offense for the rest of you, the muggles. We've been waiting for you to catch up. And if you were once a muggle and you are no longer a muggle and you are here kind of like, okay, this is all new, welcome. All right. So that being said, welcome with arms and hearts open to the next era of awakening for humanity. One of the most consistent through lines across universal 1 years are that it's a human systems reboot in some way, shape, or form. We saw the reboot really sort of last year was where we switched it off and switched it back on again. This is the year where we really take it into a whole new era. When you trace it back, each 1 year seems to crack open the same sort of three arenas: technology, society, and economics, but always in a foundational way rather than sort of a peak, right? This is like the universe kind of says, new game, right? We're starting over, we're starting again, and everything starts its next iteration. So in a way, like where we distill that into, how the pattern shows up, we could look at this as like history repeating or redefining in some way. One, technological genesis. Every 1 year births a new phase of invention or integration. Not always a shiny gadget, but, definitely a shift in how humans interface with reality in some way. So other historical 1 years, 1945, we had the nuclear and the computing age really begin. 1981 was the year that personal computing era sort of begun. 1999, we had the internet starts to become a daily part of life. 2008, digital finance and social networks start to come online. 2017, AI and reusable rockets, etc. Every time the seed technology that defines the next decade is planted here, and this will be no different, right? So number two, social uprisings and value resets. Civil rights, 1963, women's liberation and ecology, 1972, Me Too and global marches, 2017. These are years that always demand a new social contract in some way. People remember their voices and insist that the system evolves with them in some way. It's a collective self-definition. Who are we now, right? We can see this in all of the previous ones that have happened. And then three, we usually have some kind of economic collapse or reinvention. Nearly every 1 year includes market upheaval or major policy shift in some way. So 1945, we had the Bretton Woods rebuild. 1981, we had the neoliberal pivot. 1990, we had the free market globalization. 2008, financial crash and reset. 2017, crypto decentralization starts to really become a wave. Money changes form when cycles reset, and always signaling where the future value will be in some regard. All right. And then we look at power and realignment and leadership renewal. New nations, new governments, new leaders or ideologies tend to evolve. So we had Truman in 1945, we had Reagan in 1981, we had New Germany in 1990, we had Trump. Whatever you think and feel about him, not interested. If you've been with me long enough, I really don't give a fuck about politics. I'm reading the energies and looking at the history of this stuff. I do not get involved in politics because it's divisive by its very nature, and it's literally designed to divide us. If you haven't listened to anything that I've said in this video, if you're about to come in here and come up in my comments giving me some fucking rhetoric and all kinds of vitriol about Trump, I don't give a fuck about him or what he's doing or what any of them are doing, quite frankly, as long as they serve the people that they're supposed to be looking after. Okay? That's what I got to say on that. It's the archetype of the magician meeting the emperor, initiation and authority being rewritten in some way, shape, or form. So things that we can absolutely expect. Revolutionary tech, AI becomes mainstream. We're going to see things like biotech as well this year and over the next decade. Energy systems are about to shift in a very, very big way, both material, societal, and global structures, and also in terms of the human body, how that is used and utilized. Energy systems that are energy work's going to be massive over the next decade. You trust me for that. All right. I said this in 2007. Sorry, 2007. I said this in 2023, which was a universal 7 year. And since then, energy work has just been coming up and up and up and up. And you can see it. We're going to see this. All right. Trust me for this. Collective moral evolution, truth, equality, and sustainability are more now to the forefront than ever, and they will continue to come up and come and unfold. Fresh economic blueprints, digital currencies, new wealth ethics. We're going to see a lot around that as well this year and over the course of the next decade, because it used to be that it was the idea of the trickle down effect, right? Is that, it's okay for people to be super wealthy because that wealth then trickles down to everybody else. That stopped happening a long time ago. And so we're going to start to see new wealth ethics demanded by the people. Massive leadership shuffle, politically, spiritually, and individually. We're going to see this in a big, big way. So let's explore a couple of the universal years, or universal 1 years in history, and see what's kind of unfolded in them. So the last one that we had was 2017. This was starting the cycle between then and obviously 2025, which is now. So we had political realignment and populist surge. We had Donald Trump inaugurated in the US. Isn't it really strange, right? Like that he's now kind of in charge at this moment in time. And do you know what I mean? Like it feels really, really, yeah. Anyway, there's a million things that I could say. As I said, I really don't care what your opinions are on him. That's not me saying like I endorse him or I like him or any of that stuff. I'm not political. This channel is not political. I don't give a flying fuck one way or another. As long as the people in charge serve the people that they are supposed to be looking after, I really don't care. The fact that no world leader seems to be doing that at this moment in time is just proof that we really do need the system reboot that's coming. Technological breakthroughs. We had SpaceX use the first reuse of an old orbital rocket stage. So we saw that in 2017. That was like March, I think it was, of 2017. Qualcomm literally launched the first 5G mobile connection. That was October of 2017. We had social media, social awakening and accountability movements that really started in 2017, like the Me Too movement really gained a lot of momentum around that time. And it was like massive demonstrations for rights, voice, inclusion, all of that kind of stuff. We had climate and natural disasters amplifying collective urgency, which we saw, record shattering natural disasters at that time as well in 2017. So the energetic signature of that year was about new leadership paradigms, visible rupture between, rupture, should I say, between, there's another Freudian slip, between the old promises and the new demands, technology rising to reshape possibility, social accountability seeding. Earth's urgency, was amplified in some way. Now, if we look at 2008, we had the global financial collapse and the rebuilding that came after that. It hit after the banks failed, mortgages collapsed, stocks crashed, all of that kind of stuff. Governments worldwide decided then to intervene. The bailouts began. Regulatory systems reform were absolutely seeded at that time because of all of the shit that went down, right? Rise of digital platforms. Web 2.0 transformation was really all starting to unfold there. The acceleration of social media, digital connectivity, and mobile tech scaling was, it was a massive year for that stuff. Early seeds of fintech disruption grow in crisis conditions. Okay, we had geopolitical shifts of power and vacuums. Russia asserting new posture at that time, China rising as a global influence in that time as well. Energy security, resources, and the discussions around such things. We had unfortunately, the stuff that was going on with Afghan and then obviously the Iraq's, stabilization, etc. And then we had public distrust and demand for more accountability. The Occupy movement really started to be seeded at that time and was very loud, right? Social justice has really started to come a long way since 2008, and it will continue to do so. The energetic signature of that one year was about old financial systems forcing new architectures. Trust was shaken so that the collective begins to demand new values. Digital systems become a lot more central, as a more central, more integral part of life. Go back to that. Sorry, go back before that, we had 1999. We had the dot-com boom and burst, right? But that really seeded the whole thing for for everything that kind of came after. The tech and the internet space started to really elongate in some regard. IPOs, speculative investments, digital startups begin to multiply. What did we have as well? Like globalization started to deepen. Market integration was really starting to be seeded at that time. It didn't happen directly then, but it started around that time. We had political reconfigurations and new blocks, shifting alliances. Now we had telecommunications, the internet as a commodity, mobile expansion, foundational digital infrastructure started to be, laid and then blooms in the early 2000s. It's really interesting when you look at this stuff in its history and how things start at this time and how they unfold over the 9, 10 years that follow. It's absolutely mind blowing. We had, the energetic signature of 1999. Well, it was really the birth of the internet economy as a mainstream thing. And it was the seeds of digital culture, systemic integration across nations, old world giving way to the new network structures. So this gives you like a really sort of interesting and deep idea of how this stuff unfolds for us in some way. And I guess what I really want to say here, just to kind of close this video out, is we are on the precipice of incredible change. We are in, as we already know at this moment in time, unprecedented times. A lot of the stuff that has unfolded we've never seen before, and we may not see again in our lifetimes. But what I can tell you is that 2026 is going to be an era defining year. We are going to look back on this year 9, 10 years from now, we're going to say, wow, it really all did very much start then. And, life is going to be vastly different. And I hope that what I've done in this video is giving you some ideas of how you can use this energy, the things that you need to watch out for, that you need to be aware of, and more importantly, to give you a deeper understanding of how you can get the most out of this year and how this year specifically is seeding the next 9 or 10 years of your life. And I give you an example here is, I don't know if you know this, but it's said that what you eat in one year programs your system or your body for what you will be eating in 10 years. It's a very similar concept. One energy in numerology carries that. So because whatever your personal year is, yes, you will experience that. But because we are all existing in the context of a 1 year, whatever you are doing this year is going to permeate the next 9 or 10 years of your life. Use it wisely. With that said, if you would like to book a personal session with me, you can do so on the links in the description box below. If you would like to get your seat on the 2026 Compass, you can get one of those seats. There are only 30 spaces. Doors close on October 31st. So if you're watching this after October, I'm really sorry to say, but I hope that the navigator, the very next best thing, will absolutely support you. I wish you all an abundance of all of that good stuff for everything that unfolds for you over the course of 2026. I can't wait to hear you guys come back and tell me all about how this year unfolded for you. I love that people come back to this and they're like, oh my gosh, I watched this and we're seeing it on the news. Whenever I see something that reminds me of, the 1 year energy or the universal year energy, I try to post it on my stories or on the YouTube community tab, etc. I do wonder as well if this year actually I might sort of make some smaller videos for the quarter sections to see what has unfolded from this major video. So if you like this video, please don't forget to like, share, and if you are a continued subby, Rafi loves ya. And if you're new to my channel and you feel like this was worth the watch, please hit the subscribe button. With that said, take care and I'll see you soon.